Hi everyone, welcome to VR Roundtable episode 87. Today I'll be hosting. I'm Chris, and I'm joined by Gary. Gary, how are you doing?
Hi, yeah, I'm doing okay. Very tired. We just mentioned just before we started the show. I think I've got a few bags under my eyes because I've just had a really tough week at work. It's just been really, really busy. So yeah, it's I'm just a little bit tired at the moment, but I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired too because I just moved out of my apartment in Vermont, and like we brought this van, and we brought my car, and then like my girlfriend's car is also packed. I'm like, how did I have all this stuff there? It's like I barely brought anything. I thought, but
That's how it goes. Yeah. You
I guess
just
not.
sort of accumulate stuff, don't you, over the time that you're there?
Like 6 electric skateboards. That's probably the most.
Yeah.
Anthony, we're also joined by Anthony. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Everything's going well.
That's good. So this week we're gonna talk about games first, since we all played budget cuts, which is probably one of the biggest things this week, and then followed by some kind of smaller, tiny news stories. But I guess we should just jump right into talking about budget cuts. If someone wants to start off with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess yeah, we can start on budget cuts. So. Actually, Anthony, do you want to start on this? I'm just sorting a few things out.
Yeah,
here,
well,
so,
I mean, first of all, we should probably just explain what's going on with budget cuts. I mean, I'm sure everybody already knows this, but just kind of a little bit of back history on budget cuts. As you guys know, we were waiting forever to find when budget cuts would finally come out. And I think it was some point in April, we heard about May 16th. And then we started to approach May 16th. And then Neat Corporation said, hey, we need 2 more years. I mean, 2 more weeks. I mean, 2 more years or whatever they posted on Reddit. And they had a new release date of May 31st. And then so we were approaching May 31st. And I was incredibly fortunate that they actually sent VR Game Rankings a code for the game. So that was super cool. And then like a day before May 31st, we find out that the game is being delayed again. And so now it's kind of like an indefinite delay. I have seen a few different places around the internet that some people keep saying June 20th. So I don't know if like June 20th is kind of like a target for them that they're hoping for, but technically it is indefinite. So we don't know when exactly budget cuts is going to arrive. But so we're kind of in a weird situation here because we got this code, which they sent out to a number of different press outlets. And so I was thinking, how should we discuss this? And I thought, well, from what I've played of budget cuts, it's kind of like the very early part of the game seems to work pretty good. And then after that, there's tons of bugs and issues and stuff. So I thought we would kind of just concentrate on that early section, not really worry about bugs and stuff, but we could just talk about like kind of what our experiences were with the game, whether we think it, still holds up 2 years later, those kinds of things. So I thought maybe we could do that. Do you guys want me to go into my take on it, or do we want to now switch to someone else?
I'll quickly go first on this. So, basically, I mean, we need to treat this as a preview because as we all know, what I want to get into first is the delay. So a few, like Anthony mentioned, a few weeks ago, they had this delay where it was a 2-week delay, and then they sent out all of these keys to various press outlets, and then the day before release, so all of these reviews, all of these opinions had already come out of the game, and then the day before release, they actually delayed it again indefinitely, really. But I think the prediction is it's going to be sort of 1 or 2 weeks, from what we've heard from Neat Corp. But I just want to talk very quickly to you guys about the delay, because it seems like it's an unfortunate thing for this game, I think, because it's an unusual kind of delay. It's unusual in the sense that a lot of people that are going to review this game have already played it and they've already given their opinion on the game, which I know that we're not going to be doing. We're going to sort of give a preview. It's not going to be a review because we're recording this after they've already said, we need to work on some of these bugs that people have pointed out. So we're going to be giving a preview review this week. But I just wanted to ask both of you, actually, what do you think of this delay? Is it going to damage budget cuts in the long run? It's definitely unfortunate. I really feel sorry for these guys. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is unfortunate. It sucks that all these bugs happen, because I'm sure they didn't expect these bugs to be there or anything, since they already sent out the press codes and things like that. So yeah, definitely unfortunate there. It probably won't hurt in the long run, as long as they can fix everything in a relatively short amount of time, because it's been so long that I don't think people are like, I guess there's a little bit of hype, but there's still people being like, whenever it comes out, I'll buy it. It's still like my top VR game or my top demo. So I think in the long run they'll be fine, but it definitely does hurt like the momentum that they had building up to release, for sure. Yeah, what do you think, Anthony?
Well, what's weird on the reviews? Like, I haven't looked at all the different reviews that did come out, just, like headlines and stuff, but didn't Road to VR give it like 4 out of 5 stars or something? And then Upload VR said, we're not going to review this game. And I kind of feel almost like when Upload VR came out with that statement, like, then the game got delayed again. It's almost like a Neat Corp saw Upload VR and they're like, yeah, we got to freaking delay this because this is a problem. I'm wondering, because we're going to talk about the early section of the game, but I did get further into the game and it's kind of unplayable when you get to, well, at least for me it was, in certain areas. And I don't know how somebody could even, like, if you did review it, you'd have to pan it, I would think. So that's kind of crazy. Has anybody, like, I don't know, I mean, again, I haven't been paying attention to all these different reviews out there, but has anybody just, like, shat all over it? I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, Upload, they sort of refused to review it originally because of all the bugs and that kind of stuff, but I don't know if anybody's actually panned it in that sense, because a lot of the opinions that I've seen of the game have been relatively positive, but they have pointed out the bugs. And when we've been playing it, I've played through around an hour's worth of the game so far, and part of me, I've sort of forced myself to play an hour because I want to talk about it on the show, but at the same time I do want to sort of save it until they've got these things ironed out. So anybody watching, if you're disappointed that this game has been delayed a couple of weeks, I honestly wouldn't be. I wouldn't worry about it too much, because I think they've done the right thing. It's definitely going to be a better experience once they've got all of these points that they've actually mentioned, they've listed on this Reddit thread, some of the points that they do want to tackle, especially some of the bugs and also the performance issues on Oculus Rift. And that's probably one of my main problems with the game when I played it. I did experience a few bugs, but they weren't really game breaking for me. But the performance was, again, it wasn't unplayable. There was no point where it was unplayable for me, but it was just there. It was always like a nagging thing while I'm playing through it. You can wave the controllers in front of you, and you easily can recognize the performance issues that you're having because the controllers are not reacting in the way you want them to. There's a little bit of judder. It seems to be relying on ASW if it's using that. I guess it is in the Oculus Rift. So it's these things. I just want it. All of these little small points ironed out. It wasn't, see, Anthony, you mentioned how parts of it were unplayable. I never got to that point where it was unplayable. It was just not a great experience. And there were just a couple of bits where it felt like it was very, very unpolished. And I didn't expect that with this game. I want to get onto some positive points about it actually in a few minutes, but I'll pass it over to somebody else first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, it kept crashing for me. I feel like the better the computer you have, like the more playable it would be. So Anthony and I are kind of in that boat where it was maybe a little more broken than for you. But I definitely agree with what you said. Like, everyone should be happy that it's being delayed, even though like it sucks that it's delayed. Like, I wouldn't want to pay money for it to be this unpolished. It's really weird because you'd expect, like, wow, it's been so long that you'd think it'd be polished, but maybe there's just some last minute bugs that came up or something. Because that's the only thing I can think of that would really screw it up. But yeah, we can get on to how we feel about the game.
Well, you know what I'll say about the game, like actually talking about the game itself, the early area that I played seemed like a normal game. I mean, it seemed like it was just a normal game, like it was working fine. I mean, it took a while when you first like tried to click on it to start it to play. You know, maybe it took a while to finally get into the game and actually get into it. But once I was in the game, it seemed to, like, I didn't notice anything weird about it. It wasn't until I got further into the game, like basically, I don't know if they technically call it levels or what it is, but you kind of get past the first level, and then you kind of get to the second level. And it was when I got to the second level that I had all these crazy problems. But the first section of the game that I played seemed like a normal game. So I'm just going to talk about that area. And one of the things I'll say is I actually initially started off disappointed with budget cuts. And I think in a private, Reddit thread that we had, I was telling the other guys, I was saying, yeah, I got a code for budget cuts. This is awesome. You guys got to check it out. But I'm kind of disappointed with the first, with the early section I was in. And what I was disappointed with really is, not like super disappointed, but just mildly disappointed, is the beginning area of the game. It's kind of like Neat Corp has made this story. So, if you've played the normal budget cuts demo from way back on the launch day of the Vive, you immediately get into the game. You're pretty much immediately trying to navigate your way through these security robots and avoid them and all of that. Now, the full version of the game, you don't get to that right away. It's kind of like a little story interlude that goes on. And one of the things that I thought, and I don't know if you guys noticed this as well, or maybe you were having too many issues to even understand it, but I felt like they're going for a definite comedy thing here, kind of like a sarcastic comedy vibe. It reminds me of Job Simulator a little bit with the comedy, and it reminds me a little bit of Portal, a little Portal-esque with some of the comedy. And one of the things that I thought as I was playing it, it almost seemed to me, and this is going to sound harsh, and I don't want it to sound too harsh, but it kind of seemed to me like if you know somebody that they're pretty good at something, but they're not that good at something, but they try to be that good at something and they fall short. That's kind of what it seemed like to me with the comedy. I felt like, oh, they're really trying to make a AAA game out of this with having like a story and kind of a little setup and stuff. But I don't know that they nailed it, but it wasn't horrible.
No, I get what you mean on that. I just wanted to comment on that particular point. I do get what you mean. It does sound harsh, actually. When you say it in that way, it does sound a little bit harsh because I think they've done most of it okay. It's just like there are a few points where you think they've not quite hit the mark on this. And this is, again, it's a preview. It's very early impressions on this game. So I've only played an hour of it. But so I don't want to pick on that point too much, but I do definitely understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and well, one of the things, I mentioned it's Portal-esque, right? How many studios have writers like Valve had? Now, all those writers are gone now, but Valve had like the best sarcastic comedy writers of all time working for them, and Job Simulator does a pretty good job of that as well, but yeah, it wasn't like, I don't think the comedy was horrible or anything like that. To me, it just seemed like somebody that was like above their pay grade, like they're trying to be this AAA game that maybe they're not quite there with that part of it yet. But it was admirable. I think it's admirable that they are trying all of this. You can see where all the time went. The graphics have been updated to a degree, and I think the graphics look good. I think the sound is really good. I'm not going to get into the performance stuff too much, so I'm just saying, the graphics was good, the sound was good. Now, I initially was kind of disappointed because it takes a while before you get into where the actual security robots are, and I'm like, okay, when do we get to budget cuts? And then I finally got to the point where you do have the security robots, and when I started playing through that area, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this is budget cuts. This is what this is what we were waiting for. And one of the things I noticed while I was playing it, and I don't know if you guys noticed this when you get to the security bot area, is I spent a lot of time like crawling on the ground, sitting down on the floor, hiding, because there's all these office cubicles everywhere. And so you have your teleport gun, right? And you teleport over to where an office cubicle is, but you got one robot that is on security patrol, and he's walking back and forth. So you wait till he walks way over there, boom, you teleport over, but you got to get low. And so I was literally on my ground, sitting on my ground, and by these office cubicles, by a desk, and opening drawers of the desk, and it still has that good haptic feedback when you're opening the drawers and sliding the drawers back. I'm looking for knives or scissors or anything I could possibly use against these robots. And the immersion there was, it was back to the old room scale. It was room scale. Like, you don't get room scale games anymore. It's so rare. But one of the problems I had, though, is like when you sit down on the ground and, you're kind of crawling around on the ground, you're peeking around the corners, which all of that is awesome. But then when it's time to step back up, it's so easy to like step on your cord or kind of be tangled in the cord. And I kept thinking, oh my God, if this was wireless, it'd be so awesome. Because it's kind of, when you're down there on the ground like that, it reminds me of Unseen Diplomacy, crawling through the vent shafts of Unseen Diplomacy, and the cord can be a real issue. But basically what I'm trying to say here is that once I got to where the legit robots were, I thought, oh, this is good. This is very good. And I also thought, man, if there's like 7 or 8 hours of this, I'm perfectly fine, despite the comedy maybe not hitting me in an ideal way. And so I was like, I initially started off disappointed, and then everything washed away when I got to the real stealth gameplay of it. But then when I got to level 2, like, I'll tell you guys the bugs that I had. When I got to level 2, when you're trying to teleport, like, I would be trying to teleport in the middle of a big room that's wide open, but for some reason when I was trying to teleport, it was like I was teleporting inside a wall. Like, I couldn't see the room anymore. And so that's why I felt like, oh, it's basically unplayable, because I'm trying to teleport and it's putting me inside, like I'm inside a wall, but I'm teleporting to the center of a room. So when I get to that point, I just thought, okay, well, I'm just not going to play this game until they finish fixing it. And I really wonder if they're going to, be able to fix it in 2 weeks. I hope they can. Again, I'm also on a 970, so part of it might be that.
Yeah, I was just gonna. That's a really good overview of like the game. I agree with most of what you're saying. That like, I was just like, what is this? It seems a little, like the comedy's not there or whatever. But then once I finally got to the part where I'm like teleporting and hiding, I'm like, wow, this is fun. Like, we haven't had a game like this in so long. We've been standing in the middle of our rooms, not moving, just like shooting things or whatever for like months. And it's cool to like actually have to get on the ground and crawl around. Like, that's always the most immersive thing for me. So it was neat to get back in that room scale thing. I had like a 180 setup like when I started playing the game, and I'm like, I can't do it like that. Like, you definitely have to have 360. So then I like put my sensors on opposite sides of the room or whatever to get that. So I mean, that's like a requirement for this game for sure. But I need to set up like a giant room again or something for this. Definitely. I like that it started out like exactly where the demo was, because I accidentally played like 10-ish minutes of the demo, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm not on the new version. Like, this looks identical, what's going on? But it's cool because it's like the exact same elevator, it's the exact same room with the safe, except the safe has just been removed in the final version. So you're like, that's weird. It's cool that it was the same, and then they're like 3 hours earlier, and then it goes into the story, which I liked that they tied it together to like the old thing, which was cool. Also, like, this new mechanic, I didn't really get to any levels where I could use it too much, but there's this new thing where you hold it up to your face and you can see like hidden text or hidden words or hidden things, like just with your wand and stuff. I thought that was a cool mechanic. use it on some papers to like see hidden words that are probably Easter eggs or something. But I like that they're adding kind of more things, and I bet maybe even further on in the game there's other attachments that do other cool stuff. So I'm excited to be able to play the full game once like these bugs go away. But yeah, definitely graphics looked really nice, other than like me getting 45 frames the whole time. And then the sound design I really liked, and I just had so much fun. Even though I kept dying, I'm like, dang, I have to keep playing this level over and over again. So it'll definitely be fun. Yeah, if it's a long game of just having fun like that, it'll do great. What do you think, Gary?
Just to finish off then, I think that the takeaway for me is the fact that a lot of budget cuts, we've spoken numerous times on this show about how when budget cuts eventually comes out, it needs to do something else. It needs to have all these extra elements possibly to succeed in this day and age, because we've got all these other incredible games that have come out now. Back when VR was new, that was the best experience. And honestly, this game really doesn't do too much else than what's in the demo, but it has got these extra elements. And I think the simple fact of that you've got this narrative and a larger world to explore and to progress through is actually enough. I don't want to be down on budget cuts because of some of the small bugs and the graphical issues that we're having at the moment, because overall I do think the game will be great if they can get everything ironed out. I can't wait to play through this. Honestly, I can't wait to play through this, but at the moment there are aspects of it where I just feel like I don't want to play anymore. I want to save it. I want to save it until it's ready to play properly. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said about it anyway. So yeah, I guess what we should do is maybe leave it now until the game is released, and then really give our opinions on it once it's got a proper release.
Hey Gary, though, quick question, because I'm looking at your play space behind you there, and I'm just thinking of you sitting on the ground there,
yeah,
and twirling around. And is that a problem? Because it's like, I mean, it kind of is a better game for a larger play space. If I had a really small play space, it would be a little bit, especially, running into your chaperone or whatever.
This is really, actually, it's a good point to bring up, and it's one I wanted to bring up myself, because this is one of the few games, and I think, Chris, you touched on this, about where it's going back to the room scale kind of stuff, and we don't really, I don't have a problem with sort of a small play space that I've got at the moment in most games, but in budget cuts, I think I'm running into more issues than most of the games. And it is because you do this game forces you to crouch down and to maneuver yourself into different positions and that kind of stuff, which is great. I love it. But I guess, yeah, a smaller play space is a slight problem. I wouldn't say it's really affecting my experience too much, but I do see the chaperone pop in every now and again, whereas Anthony, in your larger room, you probably don't get that. So I guess that's something to point out.
Yeah, definitely. So we can go to the next game, which I know Anthony and Gary played, which is Archangel Hellfire. So who wants to talk about that first?
Go ahead.
I could start off. Okay, so my take on, well, first of all, let's go back. So Archangel came out a long time ago. It came out on PlayStation VR first. I think it was there for like a month or so, and then it came to the Vive and the Rift. And I was a big fan of Archangel all along. A lot of people criticized it because it was on rails, but I loved the whole story of it, and I thought the on rails helped it. It helped for the whole story and all of that. But everybody wanted to be able to go anywhere, and they wanted this mech game that it really wasn't. And so Skydance Interactive, they heard all the complaints, and they got their team together and started working on this add-on, which became this Hellfire update. And Skydance hooked us up with a code that was cool. And so I went in there and tried it, and I went into the Hellfire part of it, right? Because when you load it up, it's kind of like you'll see Archangel, and then you'll see Archangel Hellfire. So it's almost like two separate games, and you take your controller and you either select one or the other, and then it basically loads that game. So it isn't quite where you go into one single game and then there's the separate modes. It's almost like a separate executable. And so I get into the Hellfire update, And one of the issues that I had with it is they do have a tutorial that kind of shows you how to play the game, but it's just a bunch of pictures, basically. Like it's a bunch of screens that you go through. And then you're basically thrown into the actual game itself. I unless I missed it, I couldn't find like maybe like a practice area to kind of like get used to your controls or anything like that. So I was just thrown into like a multiplayer game, and I was paired up with this other guy. It was 2-on-2, and everything worked well. There's a lot of things you could do with your mech. You know, you could hover, you got shields, you got primary weapon, secondary weapon. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of buttons to know, a lot of different things to know. In fact, when you go through that tutorial, you're like reading instruction after instruction after instruction, and you start thinking, damn, this is not for the faint of heart. You know, you're gonna have to learn how to do this. And so I got into this multiplayer with this the multiplayer game with this other guy, and we're trying to battle these other two guys, and I got to admit that it just got hectic, and I just didn't like, I was just shooting my guns, I was hovering all over the place, maybe occasionally activating my shield, but I just didn't really know what was going on. And so I kind of like, I know I was letting my teammate down, you know, he was probably very disappointed. And then the other thing is like, I was playing for like maybe 25 minutes or something, and then I had to kind of bounce out of there, but the game was still going. I think it's, you know, it keeps going. And so I got into this point where it was kind of like an in-between stage thing, and I bounced out. And so that guy that I was with was probably like, oh man, this guy just quit out on me, you know, which that sucks. But for me, it was really hectic and chaotic, but basically it's just not my thing, man. I'm just not not that I'm just not a multiplayer guy, but like this 2-on-2 thing, like you got to know your controls inside and out, because you're going to let your other guy down if you don't know your controls. And I didn't get enough of a grip of the controls, but everything worked well. There was nothing wrong with it. I just don't think this is my type of game.
Yeah, no, because I went into this, I actually wasn't going to talk about this on the show, because I didn't think I was going to get to play it, because it's a multiplayer game, this Hellfire update. So I didn't think really it's for me. But last night I had a little bit of spare time, so I thought I'd go in there and give it a try. And actually, I think the controls, there are a lot of controls to learn, and the tutorial isn't great. As you mentioned, it's just these screens that you just have to read, and then you get to grips with the controls. But actually, when you're in the match, I felt like they were actually quite intuitive, the controls, as I was playing through. Now, the point I want to make is, you said it was quite sort of hectic. There was too much going on maybe, whereas in my match it was one-on-one. I was just fighting against one other person, so it gave me a bit of respite, a bit of breathing room as well between rounds and this kind of stuff. So I think maybe that makes a difference. Maybe the maps need to be a little bit bigger on the co-op sections, or the 2v2 sections, but I actually really enjoyed this game. I guess part of it is, for once in my life, I actually won a multiplayer match, so maybe that made a difference to my enjoyment of this game. But I went in, when I first went in, I thought this game looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, the environment looks great, the map that you're playing on really does look good. I mean, performance is really, really good as well. There were no hitches, there were no problems at all. Considering this game has the graphics that it has, I was very, very impressed with this. This is one that I'll probably try again. I'm like you, Anthony, I'm not really a huge multiplayer person, but I think if I get the right kind of game, I can enjoy some games like this for a certain amount of time, and this is one that I'm definitely going to go back in and see where it takes me. But yeah, I think it's a good solid game, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know, I think I really wish that it had, like, you would go through the tutorial part. I wish it had a little section where it's like, okay, now you can try your mech out and try your shields and try your secondary weapon and your primary weapon and all of that with like some bots and stuff. Because I part of my multiplayer apprehension is I don't want to be that guy that lets the other person down. You know, I don't want to be that guy that has no idea what the hell I'm doing. And this other guy I'm with is a veteran, you know, he's played it quite a bit. The other two guys, know what the hell they're doing, and I'm the one guy that screws it up for the other guy. I don't want to be that guy. And I feel like if it had some kind of little training area with bots before you get into the multiplayer, then I feel like, well, I could spend a lot of time there and get a feel for it, so I feel like I'm not hurting the guy that I'm with.
Yeah.
So that's part of the situation for me.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, and that's sort of my reservation with some multiplayer games as well. I mean, I do try to play multiplayer games now and again. I'm just not very good at them, so it sort of turns. The problem is, like, if ever I go in something like Call of Duty or anything like that, basically I'm spawning, I'm getting killed, I'm spawning, I'm getting killed. I'd love to be good at them. I think once you get good at them, that's the attraction, isn't it? You feel like you're a bit of a badass, and it keeps you wanting to keep playing. I guess it's a problem with multiplayer games, getting the balancing and this kind of stuff. But I think overall, I've got to say, as I mentioned, I think overall this is a good, solid multiplayer game. If you are that person who plays multiplayer games, multiplayer shooters, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this. I think they've knocked it out of the park in some ways.
And you get a free single player game that is damn good as well. That's the thing. It's a package now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I gotta check that. I love mech stuff, so I definitely gotta play that. All right, awesome. Gary, is there a game you wanted to mention real quick?
Yeah, so we've mentioned Ultrawings before on the show, but I just wanted to very quickly go through this because this is one that I picked up on the Oculus Go, and I just want to really just highlight the fact that this is pretty much the same experience on the Oculus Go as it is on when I played it on the PSVR. I wasn't really expecting it to be exactly like that. Now part of that is because I don't generally play with the motion controllers on the PSVR. I generally play with a gamepad whenever I played this game, and that's exactly the same way as I'm playing it on the Oculus Go. But to me, when I look at this game, when I play this game in the Oculus Go compared to the PSVR, it's very, very similar. There's hardly any downgrading graphics. In fact, it looks slightly clearer because of the better optics in the Oculus Go. And I haven't played them back to back, so I can't say that categorically. But to me, it looks like the same game, and it plays very similar using the gamepad. Obviously, there's the downside, the fact that you don't have the 6 degrees of freedom in the Oculus Go version, but I don't miss it at all. In this particular game, I don't miss that attribute of the game at all. So yeah, I'm just really, really enjoying Ultrawings. And with the Oculus Go, I know some people probably don't want us to sort of dwell on Oculus Go kind of stuff. This is a show probably that most people that are watching it will be more enthusiastic about, sort of the high-end VR stuff, and I can understand that. I do want to sort of keep hitting on some of these Oculus Go titles that impress us now and again, because I think they're important just to highlight the fact that these are not downgraded experiences on the whole. In some cases they possibly are, but I think Ultrawings have done a really, really good job on this. And yeah, so I can highly recommend Ultrawings. I picked it up when it was on a slight deal, so it's usually £7.99 on the Oculus Go, but I picked it up for £5.99, and yeah, no regrets at all. Fantastic.
Awesome. And then Anthony, do you have some things you want to talk about?
Yeah, we got keys to a couple of PlayStation VR ports of PC VR games. One of them just came out this week. One of them is older. I'll start with the older one first. So 2MD VR Football, that's been out for a long time. Now, it hit PlayStation VR, I think, like May 9th or so. And just Truant Pixel hooked me up with a code, and I checked it out. I'm a big fan of the regular, the Vive and the Rift version, and I like to see the PlayStation VR ports because I always want to see, well, did they bring most of the experience there? How watered down is it? Does it play? Is it unplayable? Is it garbage? What's the deal? I like checking that out, and so I tried it on PSVR, and it looks pretty much identical. It sounds the same. It's colorful. It's fun. It's basically the same thing. And now the only caveat I'll say to 2MD VR Football on PlayStation VR is that they really recommend that you put the camera above your TV, and they also recommend that you stand a certain distance back from the camera, and they recommend, that you kind of stay in a certain area and you don't have really wild hand movements that are extending really far out. But as long as you do all of that, which I know it's asking quite a bit there, but if you do all of that, it works absolutely perfectly. And what I've always said about this game is just straight fun. It's a fun game. Now, if you have no interest in American football, I don't think this is going to change anybody's mind, but we don't have any American football games really in VR, and this isn't like a real game where you're playing against somebody else and you've got running backs and you're basically just a quarterback. It's 2MD, which is 2-minute drill. You're basically a quarterback doing a 2-minute drill. You're throwing the ball, but it's fun. You'll throw a pass to somebody, they take off running for a touchdown, and you just can't help it. You're like, yeah, and it just gives you that feel. So that was really good. It's only $13. So if you happen to be a PSVR player and you're interested in that, you might want to check it out. The other code we got is To the Top, which is a brand new release on PlayStation VR this week. And To the Top, I've raved about this game countless times on the Vive and the Rift. And so I was really curious about this one. Electric Hat Games and Panic Button brought this to PSVR. And the thing I'll say about it is, graphically, there is a little bit of a downgrade. Like if you just played To the Top on your Vive or Rift and you immediately go to this, what you'll notice is that the colors, although it's still incredibly colorful, the colors to me seem like they're a little bit muted. And then the other issue that it has is the controls. So in To the Top, you're basically looking for blue areas, and you grab on to blue areas, and then you launch yourself off of the blue areas, and that's pretty much what you're doing throughout the game. It's an obstacle course. You're trying to go as fast as you can. You're trying to find these blue areas and launch off of it. If you're playing it on a Vive or the Rift, so you're climbing, and then you want to go over there, well, you just turn your body. But PSVR, the problem is it's not 360 degrees. So what'll happen is you'll occlude your move wands if you start turning around. So it's got to be a front-facing setup. So what they do is it's two of the little buttons that are towards the top. I don't know if I think square and triangle. You hit square and it'll snap turn you that way, and you hit triangle and it snaps turns you the other way. And it took me about 25 minutes to get the hang of the controls. At first, I was frustrated, and I was like, this isn't going to work on PSVR. But 25 minutes later, I had it down. It wasn't a big deal, and I was playing the game like I've always played it. And the soundtrack is fabulous. I absolutely love the soundtrack to the Top. It's not music that I would pick out myself, but it's just when you hear it playing, it's just, oh yeah, I like this song. Oh, I like this song. Oh, I like this song. It's kind of like Beat Saber in that way. And just playing through the game with that soundtrack and climbing all over, it's kind of like a first person Sonic the Hedgehog is what in Sonic when in the early Sonic game when he gets into that pinball zone and he's bouncing all over, it's kind of like that, but first person almost. And basically what I'll say is, there's really I don't really have much criticism other than the graphics slightly watered down. Controls you got to learn them. It'll take a little while, but once you get through all of that, it's the same great game. Oh, I know what I was going to say is, for some reason when I played To the Top on the Oculus Rift, it doesn't feel right to me. It's something about the triggers. I don't know what it is, because I always played it on the Vive, and then I went over to the Rift, and I just don't like To the Top on the Rift. I actually like this PSVR version of To the Top better than the Rift version, which is crazy because you have to use these two little buttons to do snap turning, which does complicate it. But $20, it's a great buy for PlayStation VR gamers.
Awesome. All right, so then there's a game that we all played, which is Wanted Killer VR. I didn't really play too much of it personally, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of Robo Recall, but like on rails-ish. I don't know. The way it works is you can either teleport if there's like a certain color on the ground, or if you like hold down the teleport button, you glide there like you're on a rail. So you can do things while you're kind of floating or traveling between places, which was cool. personally, I just didn't, I guess, get too interested into this game. Maybe it's just not my type of game. But when I played this, I was like, I'd rather play Robo Recall, kind of. But also, there's a lot of fun things about this game. I think it does have a lot of weapons, and I don't really know what else to say other than that because I didn't play too much of it. But I don't know. Gary, do you want to talk a little bit more about Wanted Killer?
Yeah, I'm going to be perfectly honest on this one because this is not going to paint me in a very good light because I played this, we received a key for it and I played it and I thought, okay, this looks good, it looks great, the aesthetics are great, but I really didn't have any inclination to carry on playing. And then I start hearing some people saying how good the game is. Anthony, actually, you mentioned how great the game is. I'm thinking, have I missed something? Is this another Beat Saber in the making here? Am I just missing something with this game? So I went back in, and truth be told, I wasn't giving it a fair shake because this really is a good game. And actually, there's something about with these aesthetics of like. So there's got to be something like in terms of like because this is like a cartoony kind of game, so it's almost like comic book graphics but in a 3D sense, and I think there's something about that. There's a novelty to it. It's the same with Compound, how there's a novelty to the fact that these are old 16-bit or 8-bit graphics, however you want to describe them, in 3D. They're very, very 3D, and this does the same thing. There's something where images that you're only used to seeing in 2D, when they're translated into VR, they have an impact, and this definitely has that impact. But I won't stay on the graphics too long because they are something that I thought were impressive originally, but actually the gameplay is very good. The thing that turned me away from this game when I first played it is the locomotion. I didn't get this thing of this. It's node based, so you are going between these nodes, but there's a wide variety that you can choose from on each level. And I actually didn't like that originally. But when you get into that and you use them, and it does say in sort of some of the documentation on the game how it's sort of tactical node based. So you need to pick the right spots to go to. And it is very tactical in that sense. And not only that, so you can see a place where you can teleport to in the distance, and you can hold down the grip buttons on the Oculus Touch. I assume it's the same on the Vive controllers as well. But you hold down the grip button and then you will slowly move over to that next node point. But then you can also shoot the enemies, and while you're moving, the enemies move slower. But what you can do is just release that grip button and you'll instantly teleport to that new node point. And using this in a variety of ways makes this game actually very, very enjoyable, because you do need to be quite tactical in the way you do it. So you can kill an enemy, and any enemy that you kill, you can then move over to the place that you've killed them. So it's not just these set node points, you've got these extra points that you create for yourself as well. So there's a lot going on with this game, and actually, Chris, what you said there with Robo Recall, it's sort of like it is kind of like a version of Robo Recall. It's a slightly different version of Robo Recall, but it does it in actually, to me, a slightly more interesting way, if I'm being honest. So yeah, this is one that I'm going to carry on playing. I think it's great. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, so I didn't really hear too much about this game prior to its arrival. Wanted Killer VR. Like, I didn't really hear about it, wasn't really tracking it. And so we got this code for it, and I'm like, Wanted Killer VR. All right, well, I'll check it out, because my view on a lot of this stuff is I'm willing to give pretty much any game a chance, and see what it's like. But I wasn't really expecting much at all, because had never heard of it. So I get into the game, and immediately there's a little bit of this anime thing going on here as well. Like, it kind of has a little storyline that's going on with like some anime cutscenes and stuff like that. But yeah, when you're in there, the visuals are what really jump out at you. It's kind of cell shaded. It reminds me of Dimension Hunter. It's like a combination really between Dimension Hunter and Robo Recall. The gameplay of Robo Recall is similar, except without like Robo Recall, a lot of it, well, when I play, it's like grabbing the robots and slamming them again. There's no grabbing. It's just a shooting thing. But the shooting thing is very Robo Recall. And graphically, it's very much like Dimension Hunter. I had a ton of fun with it, but you know what? My problem with this game is I've only been able to play it one time. and I've tried playing it again like 10 different times, and I don't know if you guys have ever had this problem where you have a game on Steam and you hit the play button and it never works. It never and then so last night I was trying to do this again because it's like, man, I want to get in there and play this some more. So, because I feel like I only played it that one time and I had a lot of fun. It was great, but I wasn't playing that long. And I tried to get in again. So I went into my like Steam folder, in my program files, and like went to the actual executable within the folder. And I thought, well, maybe if I hit the executable in the folder. And so I did that. And then it loaded up the title screen for a second. And then it like crashed again or whatever. And just, I don't know what's going on. So maybe I just need to like delete it and re-download it. But I'm having a lot of fun. And then wait, the other thing I'll say too, though, is I was curious, well, how much is this game? It's $10, and I kind of consider it like a poor man's Robo Recall. Like, I wouldn't say it's as good as Robo Recall, in my opinion. It's much closer to Dimension Hunter, and Dimension Hunter is only like $6, which is a steal, I think. But $10 is not a bad deal. If you were completely addicted to Robo Recall, the shooting gameplay of it, and you wishing for another game like that, or if you like cel shaded graphics, you probably want to check it out, but hopefully you won't have the problems that I've had in just getting it to run.
Yeah, it might be like you say, maybe you just need to uninstall it and reinstall it, something like that. But I do want to caveat my comment about Robo Recall, about how because I'm somebody, I know everybody loves Robo Recall, and I do. I actually do really like that game as well, but it never like resonated with me in the same way that it did a lot of other people. So this probably won't, but I don't want to say that this is like better than Robo Recall or anything like that. Don't go into this expecting this to be like better than Robo Recall, because it's not really in that capacity, but it does do things that are quite interesting. And don't be turned off by the locomotion immediately. The game is revolving around this locomotion method, and I think they've done such a great job. I was turned off. I didn't like it at all, if I'm being honest. But there's certain things where you can teleport, because when you teleport to these new locations, you actually just move through walls. The walls are no object to you. You can actually see a teleport location on the opposite side of a building, and you would just move through that building. And there's something about that. It's almost like you're a superhero where you appear on the other side of this building, just popping out of this wall, and all of a sudden these enemies turn and look at you and they think, how the hell did he do that? How the hell did he just appear on the other side of this wall? And I think there's an aspect of that. It does make you feel pretty good when you're doing these levels.
The developer of this game is PlaySnack, and I believe they're like based in like Sweden or Norway, somewhere over there, right? And because when I first saw the name Wanted Killer VR, I kind of thought, oh, this is like some unknown Chinese developer or something, and it's probably just a slap together game that maybe doesn't have a lot of polish. But this actually, like PlaySnack, I think if you look into PlaySnack, I believe it's a bunch of industry veterans that kind of gotten together, and they're coming out with that game Shaman Spirit Hunter, which I believe is an Oculus Rift exclusive. That's a little, I don't know if it might come later this year, maybe early 2019, but yeah, this is not like an unknown developer. Like, they're relatively decent. It's only $10. So it's definitely something to take a look at.
Yeah, for $10, that's better than I thought it was. I never saw the price, but yeah. I agree. I love the shell shading. It reminds me of Borderlands too. If people haven't heard of those other games, they've heard of that.
Well, Gary, you were talking about how there's something about what it is the cell shading. I think what it does, because it was the same thing with Dimension Hunter. Don't you guys think like when there's graphics like that, it's kind of like Windlands and stuff. When you have graphics like that, I think it hides all the limitations of our current headsets. Like, it's just, you don't know, like, you don't see glare, you don't see the problems that you do with something with more realistic graphics. Something about the cell shading.
It definitely makes difference, because like the anti-aliasing and that kind of stuff, it doesn't really affect this game. It looks great, and the simplicity of the graphics just pop out at you when you're playing this game. And the point I was trying to make is the fact that any images that you're usually used to seeing in only a 2D plane, so like comic books and that kind of stuff, when all of a sudden you're within that world, it just pops out at you, and it makes a big difference for me. And that's why Dimension Hunter had that kind of aesthetic as well. I think that made a big difference to that game.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, we're done talking about games for today, I guess. So we can move on to some small news stories that we have this week. The first one being that Qualcomm announced the Snapdragon XR1, which is their first chip dedicated to VR and AR, which is pretty cool. They're calling it the first XR platform, which, means like AR/VR. A lot of people call that XR. But yeah, so it's just this chip that you can put in your headsets or whatever. It's capable of supporting 3 degrees of freedom, 60 degrees of freedom for head tracking and for hands. I mean, it's just a processor, so obviously I guess you can just do whatever you want with it anyway. But it does kind of sound like a more lower cost design for VR rather than like getting a Snapdragon 80 or 845 in something that probably costs more than this. But I think it's cool that they're trying to experiment, work on more dedicated chips. Maybe they are more optimized for certain tasks like head tracking or something like that. I mean, there's no really telling, but it's definitely cool that they're researching this. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to, I'll reiterate some of the points I've made in previous weeks about some of the other news stories in terms of, I think it's interesting the fact that companies are developing certain aspects of their business, their sort of coordinated certain aspects of their business, dedicating it to VR and AR, and that's exactly what Qualcomm have done. They're a maker of processors, but the fact that they're highlighting the fact that this is dedicated to VR and AR, this is a processor that is made with this job in mind, sort of speaks to the future of how important they think this kind of technology will be. So I think that's the most interesting part of the story for me. So this is not, as you mentioned, this is a relatively low power, low cost device that they're aiming for standalone headsets like the Oculus Go, although they do say it can do 6 degrees of freedom in both the headset and the controllers. If need be, they can sort of adapt it to do that. So I think it's good that they're doing this. It's not going to change the world or anything like that, but yeah, it's good that they're putting this out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this the thing about Qualcomm, man, if you want to know a company that is bullish on VR and AR, Qualcomm is bullish, because like what Gary's talking about here, if you think, like, they obviously don't believe that VR and AR is going to be some fad that dies away, because they wouldn't have done this if they believed that. So we have the Snapdragon 835, which I believe is in the Lenovo Mirage Solo, and I think the Vive Focus as well. And then Qualcomm came out with this new reference design that was going to feature the Snapdragon 845, and we're supposed to see that a little bit later this year. Then we find out about this XR1. Now, normally you would immediately assume, oh, okay, well, this XR1 must be even more advanced than the Snapdragon 845. No, that's not actually how this works. What it is the Snapdragon 835 and Snapdragon 845, those are designed for like high-end cell phones. They have to do a lot of different things. And with the XR1 platform, what they've done is they've decided, okay, what do we exactly need very specifically for VR and AR headsets? And what do we not need? And so let's throw away everything else that we don't need. Let's have a very focused processor, a very focused SoC, system on a chip, with this processor. And what they're trying to do here is they're trying to help third-party manufacturers that are going to be coming out with a lot of different standalone devices. But what they're trying to do is they want to get the prices down. They want to make these things more mass market. And if everybody puts a Snapdragon 845 into their next headset, that's an expensive chip. This is way cheaper. And this is just the very first chip that they have on this line of processors. And so it's going to get more and more advanced. But technically, like, if you want the strongest graphical power in your standalone, you actually want that 845 rather than this XR1, at least right now. but you're also going to be paying more. It's also going to be hotter. It's also going to have maybe less battery life. So there's all of those things as well, where as they continue to do this XR1 platform, they're going to have more and more advanced versions, and it'll eventually surpass the 845. And then that's where we're going to have these dedicated chips. There's a lot of different companies, man, coming out with all kinds of different standalones, many of which we have not heard officially announced yet. And Qualcomm is bullish. It's just a great thing, because Qualcomm, they're not idiots. And if they're doing this, they know there's a market for this. And so I think it's a wonderful thing. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess that's it for that news story. Anthony, I feel like the next one is all you to talk about. You're good at talking about sales.
Oh, is this the PlayStation VR deal?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it called? It's I'm not looking at
the Days of Play.
Yeah.
Days of Play. Okay, yeah. So PlayStation, what they're doing is they're having this Days of Play, which is like a 10-day deal. I believe it starts June 8th and runs through the 18th. And there's going to be all kinds of sales, and there's going to be sales on hardware and software. And so if you've been looking to get a PlayStation VR headset, or maybe even a PlayStation 4 itself, this could be a great opportunity, because everything is being lowered and discounted. In fact, I think I heard, it was just yesterday, I heard on Twitter that in the European market, hopefully it's coming to the USA as well, they're going to have a special PSVR bundle that has Wipeout Omega Collection for £199. Yeah. Excuse me. I don't know what that'll translate here over to the USA. Hopefully they'll have a $199 bundle for that as well. But there's basically going to be deals on a bunch of different bundles. There's going to be deals on a core PlayStation 4 Slim model as well. And what this one guy was talking about is, if you don't have any PlayStation hardware at all, which, Chris, I think you might be in that situation, you could actually buy a slim PlayStation 4 and a full PSVR bundle with Move controllers, camera, the whole ball of wax for $550,000 total. Now, I mean, that does sound like a lot, but we're talking about all brand new equipment. You know, this is brand spanking new PS4, brand spanking new PSVR. And so that's pretty good. Now, there also is going to be some deals on games. I know Gran Turismo Sport, I think, is going to be $20. The Impatient is going to be $15. And we kind of, we weren't big fans of The Impatient, but $15, I'd be a big fan of it. I mean, we weren't huge fans of it. It was like $40 or $30 or whatever it was, but 15, yeah, I'm a fan of that. Farpoint is going to be $15, and the PSVR aim controller, the gun, if you just want to get the gun by itself, it's going to be on sale for $50, $49.99. There's a bunch of other deals too. I'm not looking at all of it right here in front of me, but basically the bottom line here is, starting on June 8th, if you're interested in any of this kind of hardware stuff, you might want to take a look at it. And I'm actually looking in, I kind of want to get a PS4 Slim. I'm thinking about doing this little VR rental thing, and it's going to be kind of based around PSVRs, and I need some PSVR Slims. So if there's a good deal there, I might go ahead and grab a couple of those.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you wanted to add on that, Gary? Or
no, not really. So over here in the UK, I did go onto the PlayStation website just to have a look at this Days of Play sale. So yeah, the bundles over here are, as Anthony mentioned, £199. You can choose either Wipeout or GT Sport for the PSVR. So I mean, that's a great price. So if you've not jumped on a PSVR yet, I think, and you own a PS4 already, I think this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. All right, the next thing is pretty exciting for me. I'm excited for this. Insomniac Games had this little developer spotlight on the Oculus YouTube channel. I saw this come up in my subscription feed, and I watched it, and then I'm like, what? There's like a game announcement at the end, kind of, which was really cool. So they've made Edge of Nowhere in 2016, which is that gamepad game. It was really good. And then they made The Unspoken, which was a free bundle for a while. Like, everyone got it with their Rifts. Like, when I got my Rift, I got it. I loved that game. They also, they're behind Ratchet and Clank and everything. And they kind of teased this thing called Reclaim Your World for June 7th, which is like an Oculus exclusive. We don't really know too much about it, but what we do know is it's going to be kind of like an open world game, and they really just want it to be like a really big, important game that is open world and like actually like what you want in VR, like a real like AAA big game is what it sounds like. So I'm excited for hopefully next week we'll have more information on it. At first when I saw this, I'm like, oh my god, it's coming out on next week. I was freaking out, but I think that's just to get more information on it. But I'm excited for that. I don't know if anything you guys want to say about it, but
yeah, no, I'm excited as well because Edge of Nowhere, Insomniac Games, I think that's a great game, and they reference it in this little short video as well, with the amount that they learn while making that game and the Unspoken and all these other things that they've done. I think, these are actually, these are a developer that these are gold for VR. We need to keep hold of these guys because they're doing such great stuff. And I'm so glad that they've announced this. And as you mentioned, Chris, they sort of alluded, I think they mentioned the fact it's going to be open world within this little short trailer as well. So that's always exciting. Anything open world in VR is always quite exciting to me. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this is 2019, like a 2019 release.
Yeah.
But Insomniac, they've done a lot of VR games already. You guys already mentioned a couple, but they also did Feral Rights, I think, as well. So
that's true.
They've done like 3 or 4 VR games already, and Oculus has a really good relationship with them. I think it goes back to Jason Rubin. Ted Price, I believe, is the CEO of Insomniac, and they're like buddy. They've known each other forever since the early PlayStation days, and they've had this great relationship, and they keep banging out Oculus exclusives. This looks like another one. And anytime a developer has so many games under their belt in VR, I feel like every time you make another VR game, you learn more and more about what you can do in VR, what you can't do, what works, what doesn't. And so, yeah, you got to be tremendously excited for whatever this is going to turn out to be.
Yeah, it's not like it's just some new AAA developer that's like, we're going to make an open world game for VR. It's kind of better, in my opinion, because it's like we've worked on so many VR games that will actually probably do something really innovative and cool. So I'm excited for that. The next tiny story is that were you saying something, Gary?
No. Sorry.
Okay. So the Pimax people have started to ship pre-production M1 8K headsets to a small selection of the backers and influencers. There's like a certain tier where you could get like a pre-production headset, and they're starting to begin shipment of those. And then the Kickstarter units are going to be shipping sometime this month, which is really exciting because like I really wasn't expecting a Kickstarter to deliver. I can't be expecting that after what happened to me with the. Still haven't gotten my controllers yet from whatever. I don't even remember what the company's called anymore.
Don't mention them again.
Yeah, never again. But I think that's really cool that they're starting to ship these, pre-production units. It'll be cool to see some hands-on of the pre-production units. I'm sure we'll get some of that relatively soon.
Well, I think from what I've seen, Sweeviver might be getting one of these things. So we don't know how many of these pre-production units have been going out to various people. Some Kickstarter backers have got their hands on these things, or they will have very soon. I think Sweeviver will probably be getting one, but I don't know if he can post a video on it at that point. I guess he'll need to sort of keep it under wraps and then report back to Pimax in order for them to refine the final versions that go out. Although the versions that are going out are very soon, so they're not going to really have much of a chance to change anything at that point. So hopefully everybody will get hold of one of these Pimaxes sometime this month, and we'll see how good they are. Hopefully they're good.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So they're actually going to start shipping in mass to Kickstarter backers. See, I was reading this story. The way I always understood it regarding the M1, what I always understood was the M1 is hopefully their consumer version 1, basically. That's what they're hoping, and they're going to be sending it out to a select group of people. And this select group of people is going to like screw around with them for a couple of weeks, put them through their paces, and then assuming everything goes well, then that would become their actual like consumer version for at least the Kickstarter backers. But if they're saying they're going to be shipping, they're going to start shipping to Kickstarter backers later this month, then what if something goes wrong? Like, what if I don't know, man. I don't think it sounds right.
It's a good point, because what they're saying on this article, this is Road to VR article. They're saying,
they're saying, if the testers give it the green light, we'll ship to general backers this month. But they're also saying they're very confident about it. So they're kind of saying, like, we're pretty sure this is final unless, like, something's terribly wrong. Yeah. But if not, then I guess they would hold it off. But I'm hopeful that they got it right, but I guess you never know. They've had history of having prototypes just not be what the previous were, so we'll see.
Well, they have a history of everything they say is delayed by 2 months is what their history is, or 3 months or something like that. So I would, like, why is that going to stop now? So I hope they don't, like you've taken all this time already. Like, what's a couple more months to make sure you get it right? So, I'm hoping for the Kickstarter backers in general, that they don't get some shoddy thing that has a major issue with it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. It could go either way.
It could go either way.
Trust them.
I was just thinking it could go either way. It could be, I mean, if they're saying they're confident about it, it could be that this is the product that could be like really, really good. Or if they're just saying, look, we've got to get these things out now, no matter what, we've got to get them out. It could go the other way. Who knows? I'm actually relatively optimistic about these headsets, because I think the company on the whole, what they've shown is they're very sort of in some ways transparent to the backers of Kickstarter and this kind of stuff. They're being very honest about certain things that have gone on, the problems that they've experienced. So I'm hoping that this will be a product that will please most of the backers, at least.
Yeah.
We need this product, man. We need it bad, because if nothing else, it puts a little bit of pressure on HTC, because they're the only game in town. You gotta, like, I can't wait to. HTC has enjoyed all this time with no competition whatsoever, and they're still not going to have competition until Pimax has enough manufacturing capacity to actually start selling it to regular Joe Blows. But let's get the process started. The good news is the M1 is actually out there, so that is good.
Yeah
it's exciting just because, like, how expensive the Vive Pro is. Like, if you can get one of these for less than a Vive Pro or something, and it's just it's on paper it's way better, so that'll be exciting.
Just on that point, sorry, I know we should probably move on, but just on that point, because I want a Pimax 8K, I want it to be good, and I want to buy one. But the Kickstarter, when it went out, it was, I think it's around £400 just for the headset to back it as a Kickstarter product. When that releases, I assume they're going to add a little bit extra on top of that, because they've got to, if they want to make a reasonable profit on these devices. I assume that's what's going to happen. But how much will they add on? How much will these products go for when they do finally get a commercial release and we can all buy one?
Yeah.
We got to see how the controllers turn out too.
I don't know about the controllers. I don't like what I've seen about them. But that's okay. It doesn't matter, because you can just pick up Vive controllers and that kind of stuff. It's not going to be cheap, let's be honest, but at least you've got that option.
Yeah. So the controllers are slated for Q4, but who knows? Gary, I feel like the next news story is kind of on you.
Yeah, it should be, shouldn't it? The World Cup. Actually, I am quite excited about this. So, the World Cup, the BBC are going to be showing some of the World Cup matches in VR, and you can see these on sort of the Oculus Go, Gear VR. And I guess actually I didn't check on some of the headsets, but I think there are a few. So PSVR, Oculus Go, Gear VR, and Cardboard, they're the headsets that you're able to watch some of these matches on. So yeah, I think it's exciting to see the BBC doing this kind of stuff, and I'll definitely try and watch some matches at least in this way. I'm not a big football fan, so I guess I'm sort of letting the side down and letting England down over here, but it's good that they're doing this, and I'll definitely give it a try. And because it's the BBC, I think it's only sort of in the UK that you can get hold of this kind of stuff. I'm sure there's ways that you can try it over in the US if you really, really want to.
I wonder if, as a PSVR player, can you just have a European account and download the app? But there's probably some, it probably wouldn't work, I guess.
Yeah, it's because they use the iPlayer app, I guess, even on, I don't know, even on PSVR, I would think they'd use the iPlayer app and it would check your region at that point. So you might not be able to do it that way. I don't know.
Spoof your region.
Yeah, VPN that.
But the interesting thing that I want to say, because I want to see how good these things look, because as we all know, 180, I assume it's going to be 180 video on these events. It doesn't look great, even when they're, especially if you're streaming it, how good can this thing look? But I'm going to try it, and hopefully it'll be reasonable, because this is the thing, with the World Cup, it's a huge event over here, and in various parts of the world, it is really like one of the major events. It happens once every 4 years, and everybody looks forward to it who's a football fan. Even I look forward to it. I'm not a football fan, but I enjoy watching England play. And this event, if people find out that they can view this using a cardboard or their phone in a Gear VR, they might give it a try, just mainstream members of the public. And if it doesn't look
great, but I think you're poisoning the well.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
every video thing that I've ever seen is just garbage. It looks like YouTube from 2006. It's pixelated. Like, I mean, if you're going to try to watch a soccer game, are you even going to see the ball, or are you going to even like, they've done some experiments with American football, which is similar to soccer from the standpoint that the field is spread out and the players can be far away from you, and it's just, you see a bunch of blobs running around. You can't tell what the hell's going on. I'm worried about this, to be honest. I mean, I feel like video is going to be the killer app. Video is going to be the killer app, where your Uncle Johnny that's 55 years old or whatever, he's going to be into it because he'll be able to watch his sports. It's going to look incredible, but we're like 10 years away from that. And I'm just worried that average Joe Blows they're going to be like, oh, this is VR? Well, yeah. Forget VR.
Maybe it's too soon. You might be right. It may be too soon. I mean, I'm going to try it. See, part of me, I'm optimistic. I'm pleased that the BBC are doing this kind of stuff, and the BBC are doing various things in VR. They've released various sort of experiences, not just video-based experiences, but actually rendered experiences as well. And I think it's good that they're experimenting with all of this stuff. But like you, Anthony, I do worry about this particular one, because as we all know, video doesn't look great. And if you can't see the ball, or you can't see the individual players that are on the ball at any one moment, then it's sort of rendered useless for a lot of fans, I would imagine.
There's actually, I'm looking at a story right now on Upload VR, because I saw this other story and I thought it's kind of related to this. Next VR, the NBA finals are currently going on right now, and supposedly they're going to showcase a major resolution upgrade for their technology, but you have to either have a Vive Pro or a Samsung Odyssey to notice it. But that certain games... Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that because
of the higher resolution of the Vive Pro and the Samsung Odyssey.
I understand that, but the fact is, we've already got lower resolution than these current, like the Oculus or Gear VR or any of these that are capable of anyway. So why can't they see the extra resolution? It doesn't make any sense to me, because they're already rendered. These videos are rendered at a lower resolution anyway than the headset's capable of. But
I don't know. I want to see something that impresses me, and so far I haven't seen it.
No.
Yeah, I tried to watch like what's the Oculus event called? I'm like totally drawing a blank.
Oculus Connect.
Have it here.
Oculus Connect, yeah.
I tried to watch Oculus Connect on my Gear VR last time, and it was just a blob. I couldn't even read the text, and I'm like, what is this? Why is this a thing?
That was bad. I watched that on my Rift, actually. I watched it on the Rift, and it was just because it was streaming. Again, it's this streaming problem. I think it was just so laggy. There was so much going wrong with it.
Yeah.
But Gary, 5G, baby, we're so close. 5G is going to save everything.
Yeah. Well, so we received a number of comments on last week's episode. I actually wanted to. You've just reminded me. I did want to mention this because we received several comments that were actually quite in depth about various things. So I just wanted to say thank you to the guys that were leaving those comments behind. In some ways, I didn't know where to begin to reply to some of these comments because they were so in depth and this kind of stuff. So yeah, we appreciate those kinds of comments on there.
Yeah, so
we gotta find out. Honestly though, 5G, it really could be the answer for some of this stuff, but we need a headset that is compatible with 5G, and as far as I know, none of them are. So when are we going to find out the first headset that has full 5G capability? Because the thing about 5G is we're talking about streaming, and then we're talking about sending the signal to your headset and not losing anything, and that's where 5G really could be. It could be huge. It really could, but a headset has to be able to receive it wirelessly through 5G, and I don't know of any headset that can do. I don't even think the Oculus Go can do that.
No, it can't. It can't at the moment. But I think that this is the thing. I think that new headsets will be capable of that. But it's not actually that. The thing that excites me about 5G is the latency. It's got ridiculously low latency, and this is the problem with VR. We need low latency. So the fact that 5G technology has this low latency, it's not even necessarily the amount that it can transmit to you in one bulk load. It's the fact that it has low latency that's the deal breaker on this stuff. At least that's my understanding of it, and hopefully somebody will leave a really in-depth comment explaining that, because I love reading them.
Hopefully. So yeah, there's two things. That'll fix that, and then once this XR platform by Qualcomm gets better with bigger like render targets, I don't know what they call it, but like the Gear VR is limited to, and the Oculus Go are limited to these pixel, like how many pixels a video file can be, basically. Like the frame buffer is a limited thing. So yeah, that's, I didn't really think about it, but if Qualcomm can make a chip that has a really high frame buffer or something, then we could start to get higher res video too.
Just quickly before we move on, because there's some this is all there was this thing, this is not on the list, but John Carmack mentioned how they are re-releasing Henry, and we didn't put this in the news stories, but I think everybody's probably seen this as well, how John Carmack said they're re-releasing Henry in terms of like a 180 video, but he described it as being sort of taking things to the next level in terms of 180 video, in terms of like resolution and clarity and this kind of stuff. So I think that's all exciting, and hopefully all of this stuff, everything's moving so quickly. VR's only been out for a couple of years, and I think it's exciting that we're getting all of these advancements.
That is exciting. I saw an Oculus Go at Best Buy. I didn't get to try it, but like I just saw one and I'm like, wow, that looks really nice. I need to get one of those.
I love my Oculus Go.
Oh my gosh, yeah. All right, so the next and final news story of the week is that Oculus Venues is now launched for Gear VR and for Oculus Go. This was kind of talked about at Oculus Connect, which it lets you kind of watch events with thousands of other people in this giant stadium, and you can watch basically 180 videos, but with like all your friends around you, which I think is really cool. They have this giant lineup of all these events. There's like one event per day pretty much in like all of June and July and August. Well, August is a little less right now, but that's pretty cool. I don't know if I'd try it because I don't know how that would be to interact with all these people, but I'll try it, I guess. I'm sure, Gary, you might try it since you have a Go.
Yeah, I would like to try it. The other thing I want to mention on this is the fact that I don't want to get into this, but well, I think it's worth mentioning because you do need a Facebook account in order to access this. So there's a lot to say on that, and there's people with so many opinions on this stuff that I don't really want to get into it. I don't actually have a Facebook account at the moment, so I can't try it, but I would have loved to have tried it anyway, nevertheless. But so this is on Gear VR and Oculus Go. So Chris, will you be trying this on Gear VR, do you think?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking I have two options. I can either buy the like $20 Gear VR controller for my Gear VR and be like, I don't know how similar they are. So if they're similar, I could just stick with my Gear VR because I have a new phone. I could just use my S6 as like a fake Oculus Go, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
out.
it's compatible. It's fully compatible with the Gear VR. So yeah, I mean, the thing that's because we just talked about like the clarity and the resolution of all these videos and this kind of stuff, and I think this will probably suffer from it in exactly the same way as the World Cup that the BBC are showing. But from like the video that they released, sort of this teaser video. These videos always look good, don't they? And it looks pretty good on this video. But yeah, we'll have to see how it turns out. But hopefully, go ahead.
I would think the video quality would be even worse because now you're adding like this multiplayer link up thing. I mean, not multiplayer, but multiple people, and so I would think the video quality would be even. I just feel like with all the video stuff, I kind of wish they let's not try video. We'll wait 5 years. Let's get video right, and then we'll do video. But
yeah, I'm also, I don't know. Since it's Oculus, I'm a little more optimistic than the BBC having the technology to squeeze every pixel out of it. Because if John Carmack gets on this, I'm sure he could make it look pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it, unless there's anything else anyone wants to mention. If not, we can end the show.
No, I think that's everything that we've got down here. I'm surprised we got through it all actually so quickly because there was quite a few news stories. But the problem is at the moment, I think we've not got any one big major news story or anything like that at the moment. It's all sort of smaller news stories. So we've got E3 coming up. Who knows what we'll see there? Hopefully something at least.
Yeah, next week we should probably do little. I mean, there's not a lot of VR stuff at E3, but we could still do some minor predictions, at least for Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see you all next week for episode 88. This has been episode 87 of VR Roundtable. Leave a like. You can leave a review on iTunes or wherever there's podcasts. There might be one on Amazon. I'm not sure. But we really do appreciate all the support on the episodes. And we appreciate everything that you guys have done, because without you, we wouldn't be doing this. So
exactly. And keep leaving those comments because I really do enjoy reading some of these sort of in-depth opinions that you guys have of all of this stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely go in depth with it. Why not? let's make it so we can understand your comments. Let's make them super techie and stuff. I look forward to that. So, all right, we'll see you all next week on the next episode of VR Roundtable. Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.